And I was like shocked. I sat back and looked at him. I put his hat on him and his beard on him, and I sat back and looked at him and went, "Holy smokes!" And that, see, that gives me chills, um,
Yeah.
because it's right. Are you picking that
Yeah,
up?
I was just getting them right when you said it. Sorry to jump in and say yeah like that in the middle of your dialogue, but ooh, I'm getting them right now too. Interesting.
I know they're not stopping.
Ooh, I feel it like in my gut almost. Weird.
I,
Yes, and many children see them too. About 75% of the world's children today are being born with etheric vision. And when your children talk with people and have daydream playmates, the chances are they are actually speaking to some of these people, because these angels or angelic forces or nature spirits, as they're often called, will often make themselves seen.
Whatever it is, it looks every bit like a fairy and very little like anything else.
But seriously, it kind of looks like a fairy. It just kind of doesn't look like your standard moth.
I know that the paranormal is real. Listen.
But I wasn't going to make this video until I looked a little bit closer and I realized after it lands behind my bench, it disappears. And it just vanishes. And in fact, I went outside to look, to try to find it, to see if it was trash, to see if it was a bug, to see if it was a leaf, like trying to figure out what it could be, and it was gone. It just vanished.
What's that? Yeah. What's what? Yeah, look. Right up there. Insect or something.
Is that an insect? Let's have a look. What is it?
I don't know. Oh my god!
Ugh.
What happens to people who cut down fairy thorns?
Did you see it? Huh? Did you see it? Yeah, me and him saw it. What'd you see?
It was like a big creature.
A big creature?
Yeah, like around 10 feet tall.
I'm not going to BS you guys. One of my partners said they saw something fall out of the sky too, so that's why I'm kind of curious. Did you see anything land in your backyard?
The paranormal is real. Is it? The paranormal is real.
Welcome everybody tonight to Fascinating Fae. Tonight, we're going to be talking with Danielle in California. Danielle, how's your evening going tonight?
It's going really well. How was yours?
Honestly, I'm having a pretty great day. A friend of mine, Shirley, just told me that she saw a pod of orcas on her way home from Gabriola Island to Nanaimo, where she lives.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, knowing that there was some orcas around makes me super happy. It's also really hot and sunny here today. Basically tonight we're going to be privileged to hear from Danielle, who's had a long history of experiences with the paranormal, the Fae. It's sometimes hard, I think, for the listener to broaden their perspectives and understand that, like, the concept of the Fae is pretty wide-ranging. It hits every sort of topic, from goblins under the bridge all the way to, nature spirits that are totally ephemeral, and pretty much everything in between. Winged creatures, small ones, big ones, you name it. I'm starting to understand through the scope of this podcast that there's a lot going on, and there's many different entities present. There's many different expressions of what might be considered the Fae or a fairy taking place. So I'm really excited tonight to talk with Danielle because, she was kind enough to send me a series of emails that really caught my attention and made me very interested to bring her on. We're going to hear tonight about a wide-ranging set of fairy topics, and I'm just going to leave it really open-ended to build the suspense and to not ruin it for the audience. So as we move forward in this conversation here, and thanks for letting me sort of introduce you like that, Danielle, I think before I do move forward, I'm just going to say really quick that much like a previous guest, William, a wilderness forest fighter, wilderness forest firefighter, I should say, Danielle also has worked in the backcountry doing wilderness fire suppression and protection. And so Danielle, I like to thank people who do that work personally and tell them that they're brave, because that's crazy stuff. We are currently having, again, one of our worst wildfire seasons here in Canada. I really admire the bravery, courage, determination, strength of character. And, you know, it's a hard job. You've made a choice to do something that protects an environment, most likely just teeming with Fae. And so I think that on behalf of the Fae, I thank you too. So with that long, sort of longer intro than I usually like to do, what I'll do is I'll just move forward with this final little bit of stuff to say. Just a gentle reminder here at the top of the show, Danielle, we're not here to convince anybody of anything. Danielle, you've heard my story after listening to Claire, who hosted me on her amazing podcast, the Fairy Whispering podcast. So, you know, if you tell these stories honestly, they sound pretty incredible. And so for that reason, I just like to remind you and the audience listening that we're just here to collect these authentic stories. If I go on to ask you questions about things, it's mostly just because I'm fascinated and I'd like to hear additional details. It's never me asking questions out of disbelief. So with all of that said, and, you know, feel free to respond to any of that. You know, thanks again for your firefighting work. Thank you for being here. Let's welcome Danielle onto the show tonight. And Danielle, you have an open chance here to start from the beginning. Tell us, you know, if you could, as you go through each of these events, when they took place approximately, where they were. Give us as much context to each event as necessary, you know, what was happening that day beforehand, etc. And Danielle, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for that. And I appreciate your comments on the firefighting thing. I that was actually my favorite job in the world, sitting up in there in a fire lookout, presiding over all those acres and living out in the middle of nowhere on top of a mountain. And waking up to that every day. I'd be on for 10 days and come down for 4. I had my dog and my cat. Didn't get any better than that. So, and I worked with some of the finest people that on the planet. I can tell you that. I have a huge respect for those guys that do that work. I absolutely love them. They're a breed apart. And at any rate, so but my experiences with the Fae, with the nature spirits started. Well, I'm an artist and a channel for them, so I started sculpting, and I'm self-taught sculptor back in the like late 80s, early 90s, and started with a Father Christmas doll, and then went to wizards and gnomes and whatnot, and didn't really at that point in time wasn't totally conscious of what I was doing, other than I was just enjoying what I was doing and creating these dolls and these little creatures and whatnot. It wasn't until probably about 2000 when I was out in the woods and I was doing like an offering on some property next to mine, and this is when I was living in North Idaho, and I lived in a place that was called Lone Mountain. It was a Lone Mountain area, and so I was standing there and I was making this offering. I was in the middle of a type of like ceremony, if you will, and I saw this being out of the corner of my eye show up, and I was a little shocked. Not quite sure, you know, I mean, it was like, wow, that's kind of cool. And you know, he was kind of cloaked in black, and he had a crown on his head and whatnot. And I'm more of a clairsentient, I feel things more than I hear. And I see things sometimes, but I'm more of a feeling person. And so I kind of went home after that, and I was just like, well, that was pretty cool and pretty incredible, but didn't, you know, I didn't, and I probably sat down and started to maybe put him together in some clay. And then he came to me that night in a dream and told me his name, and I was foolish at that time and didn't wake up and write it down, because it was actually a pretty cool name. And so, at any rate, so I created him, and when I create these dolls, um, it's like it's like I can see, they'll show me, it's like I'll do their nose and their eyes and the colors and the shapes of their ears, and ask them, you know, like hold up fabric to them, to because I create fabric around them, and I dress them, and they actually, you know, they look real. And um so it's bringing them into this, it's like they come to me and they ask for forms, so it's bringing them into this reality, so people can see, you know, what we have around us. I created, I think, two or three more little ones after that, and then it kind of went from there. I was on a horse ranch, and was kind of busy with other things, and then I moved back to Northern California, and I was out on a walk one day, and I kept getting pulled back to this one spot like a magnet. It was like this is the first time it had ever happened. I was like pulled back, and it was like pulled back, literally, like energetically pulled back. And I was like, huh, well, that's interesting, to this one spot. And so it happened like 2 or 3 days in a row. And I finally went home and I created this wizard, and I didn't, and when I say I created him, when I start to work on these dolls, I go into that channeling type space. So I don't, I don't know what they're going to look like, or really all of that, until I'm finished with them. And then when I'm done with them, I sit back and I can look at them, and then I go, oh my God, you know, you're like, this is what you look like. Well, this particular doll looked just like Gandalf. And I was like shocked. I sat back and looked at him. I put his hat on him and his beard on him, and I sat back and looked at him and went, holy smokes. And so, and that, see, that gives me chills.
Yeah.
Because it's right. Are you picking that up?
Yeah, I was just getting them right when you said it. Sorry to jump in and say yeah like that in the middle of your dialogue, but ooh, I'm getting them right now too. Interesting.
I know, they're not stopping.
Ooh, I feel it like in my gut almost. Weird. More than once when a guest is talking about real Fae, I guess that would make me how did you say it? Clairsentient is the term you used, I think. Too.
Yeah, that is yeah.
Because Frozen Wolf, like her episode aired. This is another episode you may have heard, Frozen Wolf and the Fae. And then later she sent me an email saying after the episode aired, she found other objects under the space heater, under the water heater of her totally new, totally separate apartment related to her cat Gizmo. And I was like lit up with goosebumps, and the person I was with also was getting them. And it was just like so strange that happens. As well as sort of
right.
Needing to interrupt for that reason to confirm those goosebump totally wild. I do want to just, I think maybe help with the way that this will unfold for both of us. So because there's a lot of interesting detail in the first story and in the second story, I think what I'm going to do is as you tell each individual story, I'm going to jump in afterwards with some questions. Is that okay with you?
Sure.
Okay. Can I go back just really quickly to the first story, if that's okay?
Uh-huh.
Also, I think I understand what you're saying. So if I'm allowed, I think I'm going to sort of say back to you what I think you're saying. So what you're saying is that you are picking up these entities subconsciously, telepathically through feeling, and that they are informing what you're creating. So you're almost like giving them physical form that is reflective of their actual selves as much as possible, is what I'm hearing.
That's exactly what it is. Yes.
So the first time that had happened was the first story that you're talking about. And I know you didn't write down the name, but the question I wanted to ask is, first of all, you did send me some images of what you had created in relation to that story. Is that correct?
I did. The first one, he's the one holding the crystal in his hand. He's like a crystal keeper. Of Lone Mountain. So it was like that's just kind of his what he does. He's like works with the crystals in the earth.
Did you say he's the crystal keeper of Lone Mountain?
Right.
Cool. Tell me as much as you can. I know it's hard to describe visual things sometimes, and you both saw this out of the corner of your eye and then subsequently in the dream. The question that I was going to ask and wanted to ask is if you could just tell as much detail about the appearance of this entity to everyone listening, if that would be okay.
Well, for me, it was like standing out there and making the offering and seeing him was like, I was a little taken back. You know what I'm saying? It was like I wasn't expecting that, and so I just and I couldn't look straight at him because when you're like in that mode of picking up things on a energetic level, it's like a lot of times when people are seeing things, they'll see them out of the corner of their eye. So I just kept doing what I was doing and and went on my way because I was a little like, holy crap, in that place of, oh my gosh, that really just happened. Holy crap. So, and so when I don't know exactly how much more you want other than when I sit down at the table and I get the clay in my hands and I start working it. Um, it's like they'll show me images. It's like I'll pick up images of like what they look like what size or how big the nose is, all of that, and then having that dream. I don't, like that. I didn't pick him up like feel him. I saw this one, which is interesting because I most of the time feel them. And um, at any rate, I felt pretty honored. I was uh, kind of walking around in a little bit of a daze for a couple of days.
No doubt. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
When I saw my Fae, I mean, it was like weeks of just a stunned feeling, if I'm completely honest. And you mentioned, like at the beginning when we were having a bit of a pre-conversation, how lucky I am to have had another person with me. She also experienced that same dazed feeling for a while. Thanks for taking us back to that additional detail. And so let's talk more about this second Fae now, this wizard guy. So when you were talking about being pulled almost magnetically back to a particular spot, can we talk about that a little bit more? So I think I understand. Like, were you physically feeling like you moved backwards, or was it more of a how? I guess I just want to understand it as best as possible. Can you maybe elaborate on that and the spot that it happened in, please?
Well, yes, it's like, well, actually, I lived behind the Forest Service when this happened, and I lived on the edge of a canyon. Um, on the middle fork of the American River, and I was out for a walk and came back, um, and it was this particular stand of trees, and they weren't very tall. It was just like it was just this particular stand, but it was really thick and lush. And when I say pulled back, it was like, yeah, when you hold magnets, like when they pull to each other, and like come together, that's how it felt. I could, for me, it's like I didn't have to go back, but I could feel that pulling back. So, I mean, I could keep walking if I wanted to. It wasn't something that I couldn't, didn't have control of.
I understand much better now. Thank you. I wanted to make sure I understood that correctly. That's great. Thank you for that
Right.
additional detail.
Yeah.
And so, is it your? Oh, sorry about that. I'll edit that out.
Sure.
I don't even know what that was. Something just fell off my counter. That's weird. Actually, I might not edit that out.
Right.
I'm lying here completely still. I record lying down because I have a broken back.
Oh.
I mean, something just fell from the overhead holder that holds my computer above me, right down next to my face.
You having a little visitor, are you?
Okay, so this is the thing. It did that. Oh, this is so weird. And I have that weird feeling in my gut again right now. This is crazy.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm surrounded by them. I'm sitting here in the house. I mean, it's like they just keep coming. And so I don't even know how many I've got in the house. There's more than 50, and there's more outside, but they, it's like, and what's interesting is over the course of the years that I've been doing this, when I finished with that wizard and looked at him and said, "Oh my God, you look like Gandalf," because he looked just like Gandalf. And so I called him actually the Blue Wizard of the Deep Woods, because I couldn't really call him Gandalf because it's the Lord of the Rings thing. Um, and there's a story that we could go into, and I could talk to you about that in another time, but um, at any rate, so that probably with him, uh, that was probably about, I'm gonna say maybe 2005 or six or something like that. And I wasn't super busy making these dolls, because I was working and whatnot. Um, but I started to feel them, I just started to feel them. And so when I would pick that up, I would sit down and start, doing work. I'd take my dog out for a walk, and I was actually living in an area called Cool, California, and was out for a walk with Zena, and I felt this creature like hitch a ride energetically, just kind of hopped on my back and to, came home with me. And so I sat down and I created him, and actually had a gal. Um, she's a Native American. She's like medicine woman. Come over not long after I created him, and um, she was meeting somebody else at my house, and she came in the house, and there was a full-on channeling that came in through her about me doing like a PowerPoint, and because they want people to know that they're out there. They want to connect with people. They're waiting for us to get out to wake up and start working with them again. Um, you know, we had a fire here not too long. It was a few years ago, and I had a whole stack of them sitting on the bookshelf over here, and it wasn't super close. The fire wasn't super close, but you're in California, right? Where I'm in the wine country, and so it's pretty dry, and it was summertime, and I was like, I wonder if, I wonder if I asked them to go out and try to mitigate that and like point it back on itself. to help get that so it doesn't come through and, like take out a bunch of houses. If I just was curious to see if that would work. And I actually felt their energy leave. And I thought, oh my God, huh. Well, that was interesting. So we can ask them for help.
Yeah, I want to just say a few more things if I can right now, because what you're saying is also bringing up goosebumps when you said you felt their energy leave. Just to go back a second to that noise, I opened my eyes and I rolled over to see what fell. It's my full set of eyeglasses, my shades, my prescription shades, in their case. Now, I'll just describe what's above me. So it's kind of hard. Like, if just imagine you're lying flat on a kitchen table, okay? And then above you is a small, like, coffee table. So I'm lying basically directly underneath what is the equivalent of a small coffee table. It has a hole in it for my computer screen, so I can look up straight while lying flat on my back and look at my screen. And I have my glasses in their case, like firmly on this table. They're not on the edge. I'm like, I have borderline OCD, so everything in my house is very like where it belongs in its place.
Kind of felt that.
And I have thanks. I have 3 pairs of glasses up there in their case, side by side by side. 2 of them are where they belong, and one of them just came sailing off and landed right next to my head when we were talking about that wizard that you saw that you won't call Gandalf. And it was like, when you started talking about him, I got full goosebumps and I had to interrupt. And then I got that weird gut feeling. And then I just was saying, I got that weird gut feeling again. And full on, while I am lying here, a pair of my glasses just knocked off the table above me. I don't even know how that's physically possible. I'm sorry. That just happened here. For the audience listening, like, we're not paid actors. This is
No, we're not. All the better to see you with.
Wild. It's just wild. And I'm going to add just a final thought, because I mean, Therese and Bonnie talked to me about how they transported her glasses back to her. And so, I mean, what the heck?
Right?
Doing this show is getting almost a little bit too weird for me sometimes. And
right.
I say that as genuinely as I think it sounded. I'm a little bit uncomfortable at times doing this show. It's so weird. But I mean, I wouldn't change it for a thing. So.
Oh, for sure. I trust me. I mean, the mundane is like, it's like, okay, enough of that already. So I'd rather live in my world than anywhere else.
I'm like fast becoming aware of the truth of this entire scenario. And what you're saying about working with the Fae also really resonates with what my last guests, Bonnie and Therese, talked about. They're kind of having like a fairy quorum every week with the Fae in their neighborhood. And they really say very similar sentiment, that the Fae want to work with us. They're waiting for us to be able to perceive them more and almost, I think, go back to working with them. I sense that perhaps there was a time in history when we worked with them more. And I can't even believe I'm saying all this stuff out loud sometimes, but a pair of glasses just knocked off the desk above me. And that's maybe my second Fae experience on record, happened on record. That's so crazy. I did not expect that.
That's awesome. But
Okay, so
I have go ahead.
No, you. I apologize. It's my least favorite thing to do, to interrupt a guest.
Oh, that's okay. I think that's awesome.
I just felt like that's got to be talked about for.
It does. We'll probably have more of that moving forward. We'll probably have more of that, because I do have a doll here that I created. I do have a Gandalf doll here, and I actually can feel him right now, because I think he's like just kind of maybe he was just messing with you, but because yeah, he's standing over here on the hearth. But at any rate, so I have to say, and okay, so I have a doll here that I moved to Ponderay, I lived in Ponderay, Idaho, and I was actually because um, Tolkien is my hero. That guy is just like he was a total channel to Middle Earth. That guy, he said himself that those books wrote themselves. Um, Tolkien, with Lord of the Rings, that guy is like, and this has given me chills just talking about it. But I was sitting in front of my fireplace. I had this massive fireplace, and I was sitting. I had my laptop on. I think I was watching The Hobbit, and had a full-on fire going, and my animals were laying down by my feet, and I was working on a doll. Don't know what I was working on at the time, and I have to tell you this. This would just blew me away. I was sitting in a rocking chair, and so I'm like working on this doll, and I'm in that channeling space, right? I'm in that space, and I'm kind of watching The Hobbit, but I'm in that total zone of, magic, and this energy comes in behind me and was standing behind me in my house in front of the fire. And had I not been sitting down, I'd have been on my knees because the energy, this doll, this being that came in was so regal, so noble, so like he's like Lord of all the elven ones. He was just, and he's like right next to me, and I'm totally getting one guy chills all over me again. I was just like stunned. I was like, he came in my house. He came in my house. I was a little surprised at that. I don't know why, but I was surprised at that. And I proceeded, and I made him. It was like I finished doing what I was doing, and then I went to work on creating this doll. And he actually, it's interesting that because he was in a cabinet, and it was like 2 nights ago, 2 or 3 nights ago, I could feel his energy, like poking at me. And so I went and got him, and he was right here on the table right next to the couch. But it's like when I finish with them, they always send me some kind of energy, and it's for me. So anybody that is willing and open to that kind of an exchange when they lay eyes on these dolls, because each doll is imbued with the energy that presents itself for form. So when I watch people interact with these dolls. I went to Alaska last year, was up there for the summer working in a gallery, and I took some of my work with me. And they were in a port of call because I've been wanting to get my work out to the world, because it was like it's like time. It's time. They want to work with us. So it's like, what better place to go to have them is in a port of call where people are coming in from all over the world. And there were more people that came in, and they would look at some of these dolls that I've created, these nature spirits, and I could feel the connection between the two. I could tangibly feel it. It was like, and I would comment on it. So they're ready and willing and able to work with anybody in anyone. And you know, and they're just like waiting. It's like that poem that I sent you. It's like, we beckon to you to answer the call for together to, as for together in love, as we go one, we go all. Because and that's the way to connect with them. You've got to be in your heart. You've got to be in your heart space. Um, they know, and it's like, and I'm kind of going to get off track here just for a second. Just like Sasquatch knows, they know your heart. If you're a good person and you're doing good things and you have a healthy respect and regard for this planet and the forest, they're gonna connect with you. If you don't, you might run into a problem. So, it's like, or not, you might not have any experience at all.
You're right about they know your heart. I agree with that sentiment big time. And for the audience listening, I'm just going to share a bit of our pre-conversation that wasn't part of the recording. I've been recording this whole time, and I might just go back and grab that bit because I think it's interesting what I'm about to say. So when I was reviewing your email, the first thing I got, because I got your emails late, because I only check my email occasionally because of my mobility issues, the first thing I got was the pictures of your dolls, of some of your creations.
Oh.
And I remember I told you when we were having the pre-conversation, I opened this up and I was looking at these dolls and I got full body tingles when I looked at one in particular. And it's just very interesting that happened without me having any type of primer to what, I hadn't read your email yet, nothing. I just got, because, when emails come in one after the other, they sort of put the most recent one first. So
Sure.
So what I saw was just these images, and I was getting that chill feeling from looking at the images of these dolls. And I was like, why am I getting goosebumps looking at basically dolls? Like it was just so, it was a weird, and then now that I'm listening to you talk and you're telling me about you bringing your art to these ports of call and everything that we've talked about regarding these dolls. Also, I just cannot get over this pair of glasses next to my head. It's just sitting right here next to me. I'm just like, I'm not going to move them. I got to take a picture of it when I'm done because no one else will. I got to show some people.
That's awesome.
You are unexpectedly a powerful guest, and I really got to say, please carry on because this is fascinating to me, and I really believe you. I really do. I think you're brave to talk about this too. It's very unusual to talk about channeling them into dolls. It's the first I've heard of it, but not the first at all I've heard of the Fae being muse. Do you know what I'm saying? Like they're a muse of types.
Right.
Can we talk about Sasquatch? Do you have some Sasquatch stuff that you'd like to tell?
Yeah, that whole thing, I've always been, it was like, I think the first time when I saw the Patty film, right, the Patterson Gimlin film, I think I was a kid when I first saw that, and it's given me goosebumps. But anyway, so and I've always been a nature kid. I mean, like always, my uncle had a house down the American River, and I would go down there. I ride my bike to his house every day almost and go fishing or just sit down on the river and talk to the people going down there, floating down the water, the river. But I've always been this like nature kid. And so I've always been super connected to it. I'm super sensitive to my surroundings, so like with rattlesnakes, if there's one, it's like I can feel the energy of it. So it's just like a barrier, and it kind of pushes me away, or it's like this barrier, and I don't keep walking. I stop and go around. So I've always been pretty sensitive to that stuff. And Sasquatch for me, um, you know, I had a dream. I was like, in talking about this, I had a dream probably, I don't know, like in the 90s when I first started kind of waking up to, like there's more on the planet going on than, we realize. And I lived in the woods. I was I was at about a 3,000-foot elevation. And so I was surrounded by big cedars and whatnot. And I lived in a house that had a 12 and 12 pitch roof, which is a huge energy conductor. And little did I know, I didn't know that. I just knew that I liked an A-frame house. Um, it just is funny how you do things and then you figure it out later. So I had a dream where, and seriously, I woke up and I was kind of going, what the hell? Isn't that funny? I know you heard that. I had a dream where I saw a Sasquatch walking through the woods, and 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 as he was walking through the woods, totally went camo, like camouflaged, and then disappeared. And I woke up from that dream, and I'm like, so Sasquatch was so far off my radar, man. I was like, I hadn't even been thinking about it. It was like giving me chills again. Hadn't thought about it, hadn't looked into it since I was, since I saw that as a kid, like probably 30 years prior to that. So, and I cataloged that. I was like, huh, well, that was kind of interesting. And okay, and I just kind of went on my way. It was like, whatever. And then oh man, I'm telling you, was on my way over to there was a gal that she's in Nevada now. She's got a horse rescue, medicine horse called Medicine Horse Project. And I met her when she was here. She's like 20 minutes down the road from me. And I was driving to her place, and I was driving through this area, and it was like there was a hairpin turn, and it was heavily wooded. Now it got hit really hard by the Caldor fire, and all that area is just like went up in smoke, and it's just ashes now. But I was driving through there, and I could feel that energy, and I could feel it was like I could feel the energy. It was super thick, and I'm driving through there, and I'm like feeling it, and I'm like, there's a million things going through my head. I'm like, why do I even know what this is? Why do I know what they feel like? I mean, all of these questions were going through my head. And I got up to the ranch, and I was talking to the gal, and I said, hey, you know, because let me preface this. I met her through, she had a horse that was having some issues, some physical issues, and I saw the post, and I hadn't met her yet, but I saw the post, her horse had an abscess or something. So I offered to go over there and do some energy work on the horse, because I do energy work, body work on animals and people if need be. And I can do it remotely, and I can do it hands-on. So I offered to do that, and I went over there, and that's how I met her. So, and I say that only because she's, it's like an energy type thing. So there was an understanding there of energy, you know. So anyway, so when I got over there and I was talking to her, I said, hey, I was driving through that spot, and I felt, it was like kind of felt Sasquatchy in there, I could feel the energy. And she's like, well, there's a story of a man that owns like 80 acres down there, and uh, the story is that there's a great big man that lives down on the creek that keeps people off the property. And I just looked at her and went, holy crap. No kidding. So, interesting. And then, and she said that she'd had some, like something parallel her through the forest, and, walking up her driveway and whatnot. So it wasn't that far from her house. So anyway, and then I went to Alaska like last year, and I have to say this was like probably one of the weirdest, interesting, most bizarre experiences that I had. Um, I was working for somebody, and anyway, something happened, and it flipped a switch for me, and I got so incredibly angry with this person, and it was like like serious boundary issues going on. And so I went for this walk, and I was like, I was livid. And I called a friend of mine she's does energy work as well, and she's kind of a medium type person, picks up on energies and whatnot. And I was telling her about what happened, and she goes, Danielle, she goes, I was almost, she goes, I just had something happen, and I was afraid to say it because it kind of scared me. And I was like, okay, well, just out with it. And she goes, there was this huge skull that came over the top of me, and it was like cone-shaped head, huge skull that came over the top of me, and it had a flower on the side of on the side of it. She goes, and I could see it. And she started talking about this, and she started to describe it to me. And I am tell you, the energy that came over me when she started to describe this experience was so calming, and so it was almost like I never got mad in the first place. It was almost like I'd totally forgotten about why I was angry and that I was angry at all. So it was this total, absolute, just calming energy that came through that was like, take a pill. It's okay. You don't need to be angry about this. It's just relax. And I walked away from that conversation and I was like stunned, stunned. I was stunned and shaking my head going, wow, that was really fascinating. So those are my experiences. How do I know what they feel like? I don't know. I would like to know the answer to that myself. I don't know. Maybe I had experiences when I was a little kid and I didn't know it. I don't know. It's just weird. So anyway,
You bring up a really interesting thought there, about like, how do you know? And it's like, I'm just going to go back in time a second because I think it's useful for everyone listening, especially someone who might have just been tuning in for the first time to this episode, for example. Like, prior to this, I was not consider myself a believer in fairies. The Fae, especially, to me, was like kids' stories, basically. Like Lord of the Rings, I don't like those movies. I mean, Peter Jackson, God bless his soul, I just kind of find them boring. I don't like big epic fight scenes and lots of violence. And I just, prior to my own experience, kind of thought that like elves and gnomes and stuff were for like Dungeons and Dragons nerds and losers and wasn't something that I would give my time to. Honestly, I'm just being honest. I'm not casting any shade because here I
Sure.
am. I'm now hosting this fairy podcast, so I've come full 360. I kind of am on the same page with you where I really found it very interesting what you said about Tolkien and the books writing themselves. How would he know? But like, I think just to kind of seize on what you're talking about, how do you know what a Sasquatch feels like? How do you know what these Fae that you're crafting feel like? But for me, like, I've done this show now, I've talked to 30, 40 people getting onto, right? And a number of times I get the craziest goosebumps at the weirdest parts. It's not like, the suspenseful part of a story you're going to get. I get goosebumps like out of nowhere. Sometimes when I'm editing afterwards, sometimes when I'm doing it, but there's always a moment that I cannot put my finger on where I get like this almost like a taken away kind of feeling. And I'm going to say, like, it's not the same every time. Like what I was just feeling there when that thing knocked the glasses off the table above me was down in my stomach. It was the first time I've really felt that. Other times it's like fully my arm hair is just like standing up on full on goosebumps. Like that's how
Right.
that's how it happens for me. Like and what's weird too is like when I was talking about Frozen Wolf's update on how the Fae visited her again, I started to tell this story to my friend, and as I started to get into telling that story, for the first time ever in my life, I felt as though like I heard that thing, and it like was speaking, and then I was telling the story, and that I was getting interrupted as I'm talking. This is what's the crazy part for me. So I want to make this really clear. I'm talking to somebody. I'm talking out loud to somebody sitting in front of me. And as this is happening, I'm starting to hear a voice in my head of this Fae. And it was like, it swirled up in my head. And then I said to the person I was talking to, sorry, I think that thing's here. And then as I said that, she was looking at me. My whole body lit up in goosebumps. And then it was almost as though it shot off of me across the space between us over to her. And then she said, I have goosebumps now too. And we were both like, so I guess my question, right, is like, and there's no right answer or wrong answer here. So I'm not asking you because I need you to like give me the answer. I'm just asking what you think. My question that I want to ask you is, what do you think is going on? Like, what is the mechanism, or how are we feeling this stuff? What is going on exactly? Like, how does it work?
Well, I've kind of been like, I started waking up back in the 90s, so I kind of been on a path of, walking this for a while. And so, and because the energy on the planet is raising, it's becoming higher and higher. Um, uh, I think that because and I know that in one of the podcasts I was listening to, I think it was a firefighter that you were talking to, but I'm not sure. He talked about the veil thinning, thinning of the veils. And I think that they are thinning, and they're becoming more and more. It's People are going to start seeing them, and so I think you're doing a huge service and doing what you're doing to kind of give people a heads up, so when it does happen, they don't freak out. Um, but I think that in the the planet's not in the best shape right now, and that Fae can help us bring it back. And so, as long as we work together with it and on it, you know, they're willing to help us. The bottom line here is, uh, I think, because people are waking up left and right now, and they're coming out of a little bit of a slumber, and so, and it's a beautiful thing to see, and I'm really enjoying that. Um, but I I just think it's time, and because the energy is becoming higher and higher, we're moving. It's like a dimensional thing. It's just that we're. I think that that's why people are starting to feel and see things that they're not used to, unlike Sasquatch as well. I think that that's something because there's more and more people seeing them as well. And in fact, there's a guy in BC where you're at that has a YouTube channel that I listen to daily. He is like the bomb. He's got people, thousands and thousands and thousands of people writing him every day their emails, their experiences, what they've experienced in the woods. Or these people won't go back out in the woods because it scared them so bad. But he reads their emails because it gives them a safe place to get this off their chest. And they know that if they share it with him, that they aren't going to be looked at like like you lost your mind or laughed at, because people, if you're listening to his channel, you're doing it because you know. It's like he calls it the club of no return. Once you know. Once you've seen one, you can't unsee it.
Club of no return. Interesting. May I share my own Sasquatch stuff with you? I've never talked about it on the show.
Oh, please. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never talked about it on the show for two reasons. Number one, I am not big on talking about my experience on the show as much as possible. I want it to be about the guest. So I'm asking you, but this is the first. Whoa. Okay. Okay. What was the noise that came on when you were starting to talk about Sasquatch? It was like a sound, like a sing-song sound in the background. What was that?
Oh, it was that my phone, somebody sent me a text.
Very interesting timing on both of those things.
Don't you think?
Yeah. I'm not going to look to see what that was until I'm done talking about Sasquatch. I record with my eyes closed and I just listen.
It was the other pair.
But by the way, that happened on my left.
The other pair of glasses.
No, it's going to be something different this time because that one was on my left and the first one was on my right. Yeah, I'm
Oh,
going to take a look
okay.
in a second and see what that was. I'm going to guess, based on what I know is up to the left there, probably, well, I won't ruin it for myself. I'm just going to look when I'm done talking. But I'm going to tell you about my Sasquatch stuff, if that's okay.
Please do, because I can feel it in my heart.
And by the way, your answer is, a great answer to my question, as good as any answer could be for that matter, if I may say, because, no one really knows for sure, but something is definitely going on.
Oh, yeah.
Color me confused, color me fascinated, hence the name of the show. What the heck is going on? What is knocking stuff off the table above me while we're talking? What did I see, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the first reason I haven't really talked about my own encounters, because I don't like to, but I just had another thing get knocked off the table as I was saying that I don't like to talk about my own stuff, because I'm still highly skeptical of my own experiences, as much as that might sound odd to the audience, given that I'm continually, hosting this show. The second reason I haven't talked about my Sasquatch experience is because I want to have as much credibility with my audience, my fairy audience, if you would, my amazing growing audience, I should say, by the way. Thank you again, everybody, for being here. The show is getting sometimes every day more than 20 people following it, which is blowing my mind and makes me feel so good. Thank you for being here and listening. Keep that up. But anyway, so I don't want to kind of muddy the waters and talk about this and that. And, I'm trying to keep it as focused as I can on Fae. But I think that the Sasquatch is a Fae. And
they are connected.
Yeah, I just think they are as much Fae as that purple flying pixie that I saw. Because for two reasons. The first is that I've seen one. I've seen a Sasquatch. Very up close. And I'll tell you the story now in a second. But before I get into it, the way that purple fairy moved when I saw it was the first time I'd ever seen anything physically that I would consider a Fae, right? That was the very first time I ever saw something ever that made me start to take this subject matter seriously. And I saw the Sasquatch almost 3.5 years later in a totally unrelated event. But when I saw it, after I saw it and it was gone, I just could not get out of my mind the degree of similarity of motion. And this thing was moving so fast and clean, it just did not look natural. By the way, before I get into my own story, I gotta say as well, if anybody listening wants to listen to podcasts like this one, and I know you just mentioned a YouTube channel, we should probably find out what that is at the end of the show so I can give it a shout out. I love the show Sasquatch Chronicles. And Danielle, I'll send you a link to Sasquatch Chronicles when we're done talking about this. Wes Germer from the Pacific Northwest, him and his brother had a pack of them run up on them back in 2001. And he started his show more than 13 years ago. So far, he has interviewed more than 1,100 people over 13 years, basically 100 episodes a year. And these people have all seen them. And the stories range from incredible up close encounters with physical contact to ones that range more towards the Fae type behavior or expressions. But Wes Germer doing a great job, and he in part was, I think, his example was what allowed me to feel like I could do my show. As I was searching for answers after seeing my fairy, I started listening to his show. Not that he's talking about fairies, but I thought, well, interesting, Anyway, so he's doing a great job, and many of his style cues I steal from. So thank you, Wes, for that. But I'll tell you about what happened. So I mentioned earlier that I broke my back, and that's true. I have severe mobility issues, and when I do drive, which is very infrequently, I drive with hand controls. So, you think about a person in a wheelchair who drives with hand controls. Although I can walk, I don't have very good response time with my feet, so I drive with hand controls. In addition to that, I drive a UPS truck. So it's not a UPS truck anymore, but everyone knows what a UPS truck looks like. That's what I drive. I open a sliding door, I climb 3 stairs, I stand up and I go over to my seat and I lower myself down into my custom seat and I drive with hand controls. So this is what I was driving when I saw my Sasquatch. It's important to understand this because what I'm going to describe, happened in this position. So UPS trucks are quite high off the ground. If you're sitting in the chair, you're only about maybe 1 foot lower than a guy sitting in a chair driving a big rig. And I know this because I'm on the road and I see people in big rigs next to me, and we're about the same height, just about. And these UPS trucks have huge windows that go all the way to the roof, and you can stand up and look out the windows. They're 4 foot tall windows, and they're flat, and they're right flat in your face. Just think about a UPS truck. They're big square boxes, basically. Now, I lived off grid on a place called Malcolm Island, which is way at the far north end of Vancouver Island. Vancouver Island is huge. It's the size of the UK, right? It's bigger even. And I actually, don't quote me on that. Someone's going to look that up. But it's roughly the size of the UK. And so it takes, about 10 hours to drive from the bottom to the top. And where I was going to was my home on Malcolm Island. And where I was coming from was Campbell River, which is the last big town out of that area. So like once you go north of Campbell River, it's really just really small gas station type towns until you get to the north part. And as you drive along, there's this area called the Sayward Valley. And in that area, it's a massive wilderness area. We're talking like 1 million+ acres of, mixed logging, but mostly like it's one of the largest intact sort of temperate ecosystems in the world. And you drive right through the middle of it, up the mountain and back down through the middle of this huge, like, super majestic valley pass. Like when you're up there and you look out, you're like, holy crow, there's like so much space and forest out there. Anything could be out there. There could be a brontosaurus walking around and you wouldn't see it. It's just so much vastness. And so I'm driving along, and the way that the road is cut is as you come out of the Sayward Valley, it starts to climb the pass. And so the road to my right is blasted out rock wall, basically. And the road to my left is like the oncoming lane and then a drop off down the hill, And this is not a chicane or anything, but you're pretty much climbing the side of a mountain. And the road was blasted into place to make it possible to be there. So it's quite steep on the side up past me, and it's quite steep on the side down. And because I have these mobility issues, and because I'm in a lot of pain, and I don't like to drive, I only drive at night. I don't like to have a lot of traffic around me because I was in a really bad accident, so it stresses me out. Especially don't like to have people on my ass, tailgating me. So I tend to drive, like my drive, from about midnight till 4 a.m. to make my way from Campbell River to Malcolm Island. And I sleep in the back of my camperized Grumman. So, I just do it that way to make it easy on myself. But so I'm now in my truck. I'm leaving Campbell River. This is all the context necessary at this point. And this happened about little under 2.5 years ago. So I'm coming north, and I drive like fairly slowly as well, because I'm just like a slow and steady kind of snail sort of dude when I drive these days. I'm doing about 80 kilometers an hour, which in the US is like not that fast. I think like 40, 45, not that fast really. I'm just doing 80 kilometers an hour, and I'm coming along the pass, and I'm quite alert because I've slept prior to my drive. I've woken up, I've had 4 or 5 hours sleep, and I'm had a coffee at the gas station, and I'm just coming out of Sayward. There's a big gas station in Sayward that's open 24 hours. So I'm coming out of Sayward. I'm like sipping on my coffee. And I sit like very straight up and down. I'm looking right out these windows. There's a lot of deer activity up here. So I'm scanning as I drive. I've got my bar of LEDs on. And I have a huge LED bar. Like it's 4 foot. It runs the whole span of my front bumper. I have that on and my high beams on. So, I mean, it's lit up. Like you can see everything almost like it's day. You know what these LED bars are like nowadays. They're super bright. And I don't want to smoke any deer. I've hit a deer twice driving up there. They're so jumpy and they pitch. So I bought the LED bar for that reason. So I'm driving. I've got a clear view of everything going on. I'm doing 80. I'm coming up the mountain pass. And then from my left, this is such a crazy experience. From my left, the Sasquatch is coming across the road is what's happening. And it's coming from the embankment. It's like it's coming off of the embankment to my left, which is a downward grade, quite substantial. And there's a guide rail made out of those concrete interlocking blocks that's on the side of that left-hand side of the road,
right? Because
it's quite a severe drop off, and so that guardrail is there to prevent any type of accident involving a drop off. Sure. And so from behind, like from not even on the drop off, but from like behind the drop off to the left, from down the hill a ways even, this massive form, it comes launching across the road right in front of my Grumman. I mean, like it timed it down to the second. It was so bizarre. And it was so big. I'll just sort of tell what happened, and then I'll go back to some details for you, and then I'll get back to your stories. Sorry to take so much time with this, but it's important to kind of give it the storytelling it deserves, I guess.
Okay.
It jumps across the road in what basically I would describe as one step or one motion. I mean, it like, I don't know what it started from, but because I didn't see that, I just saw it come over the guardrail, basically in the air. Like it sort of half touched the guardrail with one of its foot, it looked like, just before it launched, and it just sailed across the road, but in a more or less like standing up position, like as though you could imagine like a long jumper doing that kind of move. And so my Grumman is they're almost 13 feet tall off the ground, right? And they're a big truck.
Smoke.
Like if you go stand next to a UPS truck and you look up, you're like, oh yeah, that's way over my head. And so when I'm looking out, I'm already like sitting up more. My head is taller than a person standing out front of the car by at least 2 to 3 feet minimum. Like I've seen people stand in front of my car while I'm talking to them, and I'm like way above them. And so this thing, I don't really see what is coming off the left. I just see this huge form moving off the left, and I start to flinch like I'm about to hit a deer. Like I just like, oh fuck. And right in front of my window, basically, I mean, not even basically, it took up the entirety of these Grumman windows was this Sasquatch. Yeah. And what I could see was the kind of like the arm that was the side that was on, like the arm that's the one that I'm like next to, because this thing's sideways jumping in front of the car, like going from left to right. And now I can see its right arm sort of like reached out forward, and it's so long that it's in the second window. Like I can see it in the second window, but I can't really see the head because it's so tall. I mean, this thing, if it was a foot tall, it was 11 feet tall, and it was jumping. And so it was like the shoulder down to the arm, and then from there you could see the torso, and then you could see, I mean, I'm like, this is a family friendly podcast, but you could see the top of the junk and the beginning of the thigh, all kind of on the right-hand side. I couldn't see much of the left arm or what was going on the left. I didn't see the face, but it was white, like a dirty polar bear. And it was so close to the vehicle that is like unbelievable degree of detail. I mean, it was like flecks of muck, hair, some matted hair, some like you could see muscle tone, you could see this. And so it's like, so I'm driving, all of a sudden, boom, whew, right in front. And then it cleared the 2 lanes of road like nothing. And it hit the other side. And I was driving, and it's like, as you're driving up the pass, you're going in a semicircular arc and climbing at the same time around the mountain. So the second this thing hit the side, I was past it pretty much. Like it was gone. Like I just like, and I stopped, and I realized, but then I realized that's dangerous because I'm navigating a corner on this mountain pass, right? If I'm just stopped here, someone could be coming up doing 100 and just smack me and not know I'm stopped here in the middle of the road. So I left, and I carried on with my drive, and I mean I parked shortly there afterwards when there was a pullout, and I stood and had a smoke, and I wondered like, what did I just see? But it moved with such incredible like force and precision and smoothness across in front of my car, covering such a huge distance, and it was so big. I just don't know what to make of it, and I appreciate you letting me tell that story in the middle of your interview here, because Sasquatch is a total trip. And I mean, here in the Pacific Northwest, we grew up with that stuff, right? So, but you know, again, like, what am I supposed to be doing with my life when fairies and Sasquatch appear to my visual perception and every other faculty to be real? Now, I wasn't with another person when I saw the Sasquatch, so I'm going to just right here for everybody listening do the job of dismissing that. Let's just pretend James is just telling a big, tall tale. I'll go back to my fairy encounter, though. I was with my friend, and that, you know, she's going to eventually come forward and talk on the show as well. I don't know what else to say other than, like, there are shared encounters taking place with more than one witness. And so your sense of, like, why do we perceive things might just be that, like, human beings, just to round this out and finish the thought so we can move on here, is like, we as human beings might very well be way more capable than we are taught and that we understand. And it seems, it seems to be a shame that most sacred knowledge around this subject matter is obscured in, like, you know, let's talk about Lord of the Rings for a quick second, because, like, there's 2 serious groups on that topic. Some people are like, cool fantasy novel. Other people like you are like, that's a documentary, you know, basically, right? Like, and so, you know, what I'm trying to get at is that a lot of the knowledge around the subject matter has been obscured with that term fairy tale, with that idea of fantasy book, etc. But you and I are talking today in 2024, right? And we're talking on computers with access to the internet, and during our conversation, weird paranormal stuff is happening in my house, and both you and I are getting like totally, you know, lit up with clairvoyant, clairsentient goosebumps and chills. I just find that so interesting and worthy of acknowledgement and discussion. And you have helped me really get into that today and let me tell my Sasquatch story. So thanks a lot. I appreciate that.
Oh, I'm happy to do it, because it's funny that, you know, you're asking, like, or you're talking about all of this stuff has been like folklore and myth, and you know, we're taught that they're fairy tales. Well, they're not fairy tales, they're true. And we've been so dumbed down, and that's one of the things that that guy that I listen to on YouTube is his channel is How to Hunt, the Facts by How to Hunt, and I started listening to him like I don't know, but he was just a hunting guide out of BC, and he lives in Vancouver, and he was just a hunting guide, and it was like I was listening to him when he was hunting and that and whatnot. But now, and people started kind of emailing a little bit here and there about Sasquatch. Well, he like avoided the subject like the plague because because of the way people react to it. And then finally he got so many emails that he just started reading them, and his channel's grown from like I mean he's like got I don't know over 300,000 subscribers and I don't know how many millions of views and hits every day or every month. So but that's one of his questions is why are we being lied to? Why have we been dumbed down? Why don't we know about all of this stuff? Why? So and it's starting to come out, like the school systems or, it's like indoctrination systems and that kind of thing. And, it's like it's like we don't focus on a child's strong point. We don't focus on their gifts. By the time you're, I don't know, 5 or 6 years old, if you don't, if you're not, haven't been like my cousin has a couple of daughters, and her little daughter, she's 3 years old, and she's telling me that they met some people going camping, and they walked into the campsite, and the woman that they were meeting up to go camping with had a bunch of stuff tied around one of the trees in the campsite. And the little girl looked up at that tree and she looked at her mommy and she said, "Mommy, that tree has angry eyes." And her mom said, "What do you mean, Victoria? What do you mean it has angry eyes?" And she said, "It has angry eyes." And she's trying to see what her daughter is looking at. Well, she untied whatever it was, a lantern or whatever it was that she had tied to the tree, and it calmed the tree. Then the tree didn't have angry eyes anymore. These little kids, and when we're born, we're so perceptive, but it's like that doesn't get fed. We're taught, we're programmed, we're programmed out of all of that. So it's like now we're becoming reprogrammed, and we need to start really questioning what's true and what's not. And the Fae, I mean, I was sitting out here on the deck was it last year? This was last year. Sitting out on the deck and I was looking down at because I created this whole scene with a bunch of dolls called a Circle of Light. And that's a fascinating story in and of itself. And it was like I took a bunch of the dolls and I put them in a circle, and I had all this grapevine around the outside of it. It's like gnarly wood, around the outside of it. And I had candles in the middle, and I set up a doll in the middle. I lit the candles, and I did this whole ceremonial setup and took a bunch of pictures of it. And so that was pretty cool all in and of itself. But I did that like, I don't know, back in 2018. And so I was sitting out on the deck this I think it was last April, and I was looking down there in that spot, and the deer lay down there all the time. And I happened to look over to the left, and there's this great big huge granite rock. And I was looking at that, and it was kind of, I'm like, whatever. And all of a sudden I saw myself going underneath it on my back, feet first on my back. And I was like, what the heck was that? What was that? So I walked down there, and I wanted to, because I wanted to see what was going on. And the energy coming out from underneath that rock was like freaking magical. And 4 dolls came out of that. I had 4 dolls come out of that. And then I had a piece of obsidian that showed up that looks like a dragon head on a rock that it just showed up out of the blue. After that, it was like just showed up, and I was like, oh my God. And then this year, the just a couple of, like a month or so ago, um, I was driving down the Gold Country Highway, Highway 49, and coming back from the store. I think it was in spring, and so it was really green, and the grasses weren't really tall, but it was a lot of cow pasture and whatnot, rolling hills and oak trees and all of that off on this side of the road. And I have a tendency to be attracted to these areas where there's like portals where they come out of these. They're portals. They're actual portals. Um, and I'm like driving down the road. I'm doing like 60 miles an hour, and I'm like look, and I'm like drawn to this spot, and it looks like the energy of it. There's like all these big granite rocks, kind of like some of them were spired, like tall and skinny, and the energy reminded me of Stonehenge, and for whatever reason, and and I just created like $4 out of that, and and the first one that I did, it was like I came home. We came home from that area. I didn't think too much of it. And I was laying down trying to go to sleep, and I could feel this energy poking at me. It was like I didn't have any clay. I was out of clay, completely out of clay, and I could not go to sleep. Couldn't go to sleep to save my life. I couldn't go to sleep until I got this doll on paper. At least get him on paper. And so I drew him, and he's got the most massive ears you've ever seen. And I drew him and ordered some clay, and then and this is just interesting to me. Um, I created him, and then I posted him up on I don't know if it was Froud Froud Facebook page or something, or I don't know, sculpted dolls or whatever, one of a kind sculpted dolls or whatever. And I had like 5,000, over 5,000 likes on this one doll. And I was like, holy crap. People were like really, I mean, his energy is like really pulling on people, really drawing them in, because I have never had that many responses. It just kept going up and up and up, and I was just stunned. So anyway, so I created, and there was a him, and then there was a female, and then a little one, like their kid, and this really cool looking old gnarly like gnome. Well, it, elf kind of. It feels more elven. Elf, bent over, like bent over holding a cane. He came out of that as well, and they're the latest pieces. And I just like I sat back when I put them all together and took some pictures of the mom and the dad and the little one. The love coming off of that whole thing. I was just sitting there. I was like taking a bath in it. It was unreal. The energy coming out of that. I was like just sitting there going, "Oh, I can just sit here all day long." It's like unreal. So, it's I mean, it's not my imagination. And people say, well, you got quite an imagination. Not my imagination. It is what it is. I'm old enough to where it's like I don't care anymore. So, and you'll totally get there, trust me, or if you're getting there. But the bottom line is it's okay. So it's like, where do we choose to put our attention? And we are powerful. We are powerful. And what do we choose to create? And that's one of the biggest things is a lot of these distractions, all this crap on mainstream media and all this stuff that people are listening to. It's like, do you want to put your energy there? You want to feed that, because when you put your energy, when you give your attention to something, you're feeding that with your energy. Or do you want to create, because we are the creators of our own realities? Do you want to create a world where we can live in peace and love and community and cooperation? Because I think really at the heart of humanity, that's kind of who we are. But we're just so inundated with so much garbage that it's like we believe that to be the truth. So for me, what I've done is I've taken my attention off of all of that, even though especially the political circus crap that's going on in this country is, I'm telling you, it's like unreal. So I've decided that I'm going to create my own world, and I choose to live with the Fae. And the bottom line is when I channel that particular poem, it's like, it's like it starts out. If it starts out, today we ask you sit quietly still and give us a moment in love with you, if you will. For this is the way to connect with the Fae. We live in that place of peace in your heart, in the beauty and stillness of which we all are a part. So that came through on the Day of the Elves. That came through on the summer solstice. I don't know, 2019 or 2020 or something like that. I think it was before I moved to Southern California and watched my grandson for, lived down there for a couple of years. Um, but it's truly, really all about getting back to truly who we are and getting in touch with that place of peace in our heart. And because that place of peace in our heart is who we truly are, right? It's like getting back to the quiet, getting back to nature, getting back to who we truly, really are, instead of, buying into all of this garbage that's going on all around us. Let's connect and create and recreate and heal, and heal the land, and like work together. you know I had I was camping with my brother, and I'm gonna probably go into one of the questions you were gonna ask me before we ended this. um in a lake called Hellhole in California, and it's a beautiful little lake, and I'm in the middle of a granite. It's a granite. It's all set in granite, and so we were up there fishing, and I don't know, we were camping there for a few days, and we were set up in the woods, and there was a path along that's up above our camp, but from the lake, if you didn't know that spot was there, you wouldn't know it was there. So we were tucked up into the trees, and it so this is my bear experience. So anyway, we're tucked up into the trees, and we were cooking dinner. He was making chicken turkey burgers, and they had blue cheese in them, and it smelled like insanely good. It was on the barbecue, and the sun was going down. It was dusky, and we're sitting there talking, and he can't hear very well. He's, he can hear him, but he can't hear really well. And he's sitting there and he's talking to me, and off in the distance, while he's cooking this dinner, I hear this noise, and it was like, and I was like, huh, well, that's interesting, because I've never heard that before, and I've been camping since I was born, right? Been out in the woods since I was born. Never heard that in my life. And he's talking and talking and talking. All of a sudden, it happens again. It's a little louder this time. And it happens again and again and again. And finally, he looks at me and he goes, "What the bleep is that?" And I said, "I think it's a bear. And I think he's telling us he's going to join us for dinner." And, and he looks at me, and he's my older brother. He's like 6 years older than me. And he goes, "I'm going to go down and get a flashlight to the boat." And I'm like, he's going to leave me sitting there in campsite by myself, right? And he's going to go down to the boat and get a flashlight. Well, the boat was like, football field away from where we were at. Like, oh, okay, thanks, I think. And so I'm standing there on the other side of the fire, and it was a bear, and I couldn't see it, but I knew he was up there, and he was standing up on the path that was going by the campsite. And I didn't know that they did this, and if I wasn't really sensitive and couldn't pick up on energy, I would have been clueless. But I was standing there, and he sent his energy into the campsite. He sent it down off that path. Standing up there, he sent his energy into the camp. And I was standing there, going, oh my God, taking a bath in the energy of this bear. And it didn't feel like he felt more curious and like kind of checking it out, seeing if, like what are the odds I'm going to get one of those burgers. And I was standing down there just like, holy smokes. I couldn't believe it. The energy is this powerful, benevolent, powerful, it was just like powerful energy. And I was just going, oh my God, I could just stand here all day long. And I thought to myself, and this all happened within just a few minutes, but I'm standing there thinking to myself, what am I going to do about this? What can I do about this? Because my brother's got guns, and if this bear decides he's going to visit, he's going to shoot it. And I'm standing there going, not cool with that. And because I kind of have them, they're like spirit guides for me. So I'm like going, what can I do to get him to, I'm thinking about all these things that are going through my head. And I thought, first of all, well, I can do that. I can send my energy up to him and let him know that I can feel you. And this is who I am. Why not check it out? Like I don't know, clueless. So I did that, and I could feel this question. It was kind of like a Scooby-Doo, like, what? Kind of like reaction from this bear, because, most of the time they feel fear from humans, and I'm sure he was kind of wondering, who the heck is this person? And so I was standing there, and we were having this exchange of energy. And so I'm just standing there exchanging energy with a bear. I'm taking a bath in the bear energy, and I'm like going, oh, this is the coolest thing I've ever experienced in my life. Next to the dolls, it's like the coolest thing I've ever experienced in my life. And then I thought, okay, well, probably need to get him out of here, because I need to get him out of here. So I thought, well, in all the teachings that I've had in all these years, like, what can I do? So I said a prayer to the four directions. And I called on the archangels of the four directions, and I said, will you please move this bear out of here and keep us from any further disturbance in the night? And within 30 seconds, that bear was ambling off into the woods. And I was just in shock, in amazement, in awe. And my brother comes up, right? Took him that long to do this, gets up there, got his flashlight, bear's gone. And I'm standing there thinking in my head, don't even talk to me. I don't even want to hear you. I don't want to see you. I just want to stand here and be in this. you know, it was like the coolest thing I've ever felt in my life. But he said, well, what'd you do? And I said, well, I said a prayer. He goes, oh, yeah, well, you know what? If he was hungry enough, he would have come in and ate those. And I said, yeah, okay, whatever. Whatever you think, whatever you say, I'm not going to try and convince you. I don't care. I know what I just experienced. And I was like, yay. And so 2 months later, I was at the fire lookout, where I was working, and I couldn't see that lake from where the lookout was because there was a ridge in the way. But it was, say, 5 miles or 6 miles as a crow flies from the lookout. And there was a twin lake to it that I could see from the lookout. And anyway, so I was up there one day, and the bears up there, it was like I could feel them again, like magnets. They would pull me out. They'd pull me out of the tower. And I couldn't see this bear, but I went out and I could feel it. And so I went out, and I was standing on the deck, and I couldn't see it. He was off in the trees. And I thought, well, I'm going to try this again, right? I'm going to try and send my energy out and see what happens. And at that point in time, I had a dog. He was a chow mix, and he was laying probably about 20 feet down from the tower, down the steps on a landing where he never laid before. He never laid there. He always laid down by my truck in the shade, but he was laying on the landing between the tower and my truck. And at this particular morning, which was odd, just the whole thing was odd. Anyway, so I sent my energy out, I did that, and then on the radio, I heard the ranger, the boss lady of everybody. She's down on the road beneath me, and I thought, oh well, if she comes up, maybe I should, clean the windows or something. Anyway, so I got to paper towels and whatnot. I'm cleaning the windows, and my dog starts barking like a mad dog. It's like just having a pitch and a fit. And so I put everything down. I walk over to the side rail and I look down, and at a gallop, here comes this blonde bear, and she's like coming up to the tower. And I was standing there, and I went, "Oh my God!" It was like, "Oh my God!" And she saw me, and we like kind of like locked eyes, and she stopped, just put like totally put on the brakes, just like immediately stopped, looked at me, and turned to the side and went off into the woods. I got pictures of her leaving. I didn't get pictures of her face, but God, but she was so beautiful and blonde, which was unusual. And that was just one of the coolest things that I've ever experienced. So, we have these abilities. We have these abilities. We can do this. We just need to tap into it and remember who we are.
Seeing we have a name for them here in British Columbia. I think they're called a Kermodo bear, or I probably have that wrong, but they call it a spirit bear when you see a blonde bear. Extremely rare. It's
Right.
extremely rare to see a blonde one.
Right.
And I love that it was basically like a beacon, like running towards you, and the energy that it was picking up. That's powerful.
Oh, it's extremely powerful.
It really reminds me of something that is related to my fairy experience, sort of. But my fairy experience happened aboard my boat called Seaquarium Shame. I'm an animal rights activist, and I do protest against whale watching. Well, I used to before my injury. I have had to stop that because of my mobility issues, but I used to have this boat that I painted to look like orca whales, and I would drive it to protest the whale watching industry. And the day that I launched the boat, I'm going to bring my friend Blake on to tell this story, I think eventually here. But the day that I launched the boat, so, just for some further explanation, I took it out of the water. I had it painted. It's 75 feet long. It's a big deal to get this out of the water and do all this. I put it back in the water, and my friend Blake, my good buddy, was with me, and we were taking it for its maiden voyage since it had been put back in the water. And I back it off of the dock after getting fuel. This is the first time I've ever really had the boat out myself, honestly, because I bought it and then immediately started this work on it. I back it out, and I hear a thud, and I'm like, oh crap, what did I hit? And then I hear like another thud, and I climb out of the wheelhouse, and I look over the side of the boat, and there's salmon jumping and hitting the side of the boat. And that's so weird. And I look up from that, and right there, right off the dock, right in the water, 100 feet from the boat, is a pod of orca whales.
Oh, how beautiful.
I lost my mind. I got my camera out. I'll find that video. I sound like an excited 11-year-old schoolgirl. I'm like, oh my God, they're here. They're here. They're here. They're here.
Right.
Blake is like, Blake can't believe it. He's like, bro, what? As if the orcas have showed up for the launching of your boat. And you know what? For some reason, I knew we were going to talk about that because, I started off by saying my friend saw some orcas today. It's all coming full circle now. Of course they showed up today. It's not just coincidence. It was going to be part of the show. Huh. Interesting stuff. Well, Danielle, out of respect for your time, out of respect for the audience's time, we have covered such a wide depth of conversation topic. I gotta say, this has been a beautiful and uplifting conversation for me, and I just really appreciate you. Yeah, awesome. I really appreciate you. I appreciate the way that you're talking about this stuff. I like that you said you're old enough that you just don't give a crap. I don't know if that's it so much. I think there's more to you than that, but I really I do appreciate just that ability to talk to somebody so powerful and Yeah, your connection to this stuff is real. What just happened when we were talking is a little bit mind blowing. I'm gonna have to sit with this. We're talking about the orcas that I saw earlier in full circle towards the end, and the glasses knocked off my table and the ball mouse popped out of its socket. That defies physics. What the heck? I just don't even know. It's basically like they can reach through the veil and touch stuff is what it basically appears to be taking place.
Well, and I think they're like they vibrate at a little higher vibration. We don't necessarily can't see them all the time, but because they are at a higher vibration, but they're here. They can do things. They're here. Just because we can't see them doesn't mean they're not real. I mean, you know, you the wind, you can't see the wind, but you sure know it's there, don't you? Right? So, I mean, it's like, you know, they're there, they're here, and they want us to, like wake up and smell the coffee. So let's do that. And what you're doing is helping get the word out. And what you're doing is why I reached out to you because it's like I've been wanting to get this information out for a long time. And I'm actually I'm at the point where it's like, yeah, because I was talking to my girlfriend and told her that we were going to do this. And she said, she goes, well, I'd be writing down all kinds of stuff. I'm not going to write nothing down. I'm just going to answer his questions because it's like, I mean, it's what I've experienced. What are you going to do? It's just all I can do is be honest and answer the questions. So, we're here to, I just kind of feel like, I mean, there's far more to us than what we've been taught. It's time for us to, kind of get back in touch with that. So my hat's off to you, man, for doing what you're doing.
Wow. Danielle, I really appreciate those kind words. That's so nice of you to say. And, this podcast is really helping me out in a lot of ways. Not the least of which is just the chance to talk with beautiful people and really expand my horizons. And so I think with all of that said tonight, what we'll do here is we will give a gigantic thanks on behalf of all of the human and non-human listeners tuning into Fascinating Fae tonight. Big thanks to Danielle. We're going to throw some of the images up on the liner notes for the show. Just a final bit of housekeeping here as we go to wrap up today. If you've had an encounter and you'd like to be on the show, please drop me a line. My email address is encounters@fascinatingfae.com. You can follow me on socials at Fascinating Fae, at every social that you can think of. I am not that good at my social media because my mobility issues sort of prevent me from doing it as much as I'd like to. Most of my time that I can put into being at the computer is to produce the show and talk to people. So I decided that it would be okay for me to ask my growing audience to keep up that growth and help me with that part of making this show. So feel free to share this show and talk about it on social media. Even if you don't do that regularly, I have, several hundred people that are following this show. And if each one of you just took a second to say, hey, this is my favorite episode, and you put that like in a Facebook group that you're a part of, it's a lot different than me doing it and self-promoting. When somebody genuinely is sharing their enthusiasm with a friend, it tends to be like the real deal. Like if you really like a band and you get your friend into that same band, that's the only way that I think I would be happy with this show growing. So if you're enjoying this and if you enjoyed this conversation with Danielle, with myself, tune into the firefighter episode as well, number 5, I think it is, the firefighter and the fairy with William. And just a final thanks again for your wilderness firefighting work, Danielle. Thanks for letting me do that housekeeping. And audience, thanks for being here and helping this show come together and have a reason to exist. So with all that said, just again, a big thanks on behalf of all of our human and non-human listeners to Danielle for being here on Fascinating Fae tonight. Danielle, I'll give you the last word. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I'm like totally thrilled to do it, and I'm glad we got to get together as quick as we did. That was pretty awesome. Putting that together today. So yeah, I actually shared your site with a gal that was talking about mm, her experience with the fairy, and people telling her it was a illusion. I said, go listen to him. So, so, spread the word and get it out there for
Wow.
sure. Because I think you're doing great work, and I just appreciate you giving me your time as well. And everybody that's listening, I appreciate you taking the time to do it. It's awesome.
If I was a holy man, I would spread the good word that every single human soul is whole divine. But still I'm just a lonely man, though I've got the glimpse of truth. Within this brain and body I'm defined. I see the people are walking in the world, they're wandering around aimlessly. They chase the mighty dollar till they die. They need the money to make it marvelous. They're molding us too much like sheep. A multitude of madness lies we buy. I wanna live in a world where we take care of each other, hold and embrace and share with one another. And we send prayers to the others, holding the space for them to recover, so they can discover their mother, patiently waiting sisters and brothers. It's time to rise from the slumber, wake from the dream, and learn how to love her now. For the day has come to turn this ship around. If I had a time machine, well, I'd go back and check the scene and dance along the pages of the past. But no, I wouldn't change a thing, for what it's bright it's meant to bring. And who am I to judge the master plan? But in times like these I'm questioning why we live so desperately, scared to bat an eye at the hourglass. With our head in the sand we're wrestling with questions that need answering. They say the guru lies within you, just have to ask. I wanna live in a world where we take care of each other, hold and embrace and share with one another. We'll send prayers to the others, holding the space for them to recover, so they can discover their mother, patiently waiting sisters and brothers. It's time to wake from the slumber, rise from the dream, and learn how to love her now. For the day has come to turn this ship around. I wanna live in a world where we take care of each other, hold and embrace and share with one another. And we'll send prayers to the others, holding the space for them to recover, so they can discover their mother, patiently waiting sisters and brothers. It's time to wake from the slumber, rise from the dream, and learn how to love her now. For the day has come to turn this ship around.